Hi everyone, Alexandra Jupiter Returns here with your weekly astrology forecast for the week of the 1st to the 7th of March 2021. I hope you're all really well. I hope you're feeling the general lift that we're having. I love when I sit here on a Monday and I've got nice things to tell you. And there is lots of nice things to talk about this week. I think it's going to be a really stimulating energy this week that's essentially going to be a big breath of fresh air, a big clearing away of some of the cobwebs, and stirring things up as we prepare for the vernal equinox, essentially, which is the natural new year. So we've still got in the backdrop, just to sort of set the context of things, we've still got this Saturn-Uranus square in the background. You know, lots and lots of examples of that, you know, in the world around us, of how that's showing up, you know, the rules and restrictions versus the will for freedom and progression. That's reached its first peak and is slowly dissipating away. And that process of slowly dissipating away is going to be assisted a little bit further this week, as I'll talk about when Mars changes signs. Mars moving out of Taurus, so taking away a bit of his emphasis that he has on the scene, just creating the sign-based square. So that's starting to lull. It doesn't lull too much though, before the second peak, the second square aspect that we have in June, but it does tail off into the background, and that allows a little bit more prominence, a little bit more influence of some of the other planets, which we're really going to be feeling a lot of this week. So the Saturn-Uranus thing is still going on. Mercury is quite influential at this time, and it's really important to remember in the context as we move through this week that with everything that's going to be happening with Mercury, Mercury is in the post-retrograde shadow phase. So it's that third and final kind of piece of the retrograde transit. So you're going to be in this post-retrograde phase until around about the 13th of the month. So all of this week. And so essentially this is that phase of, okay, things are falling back into place, things that we've corrected, things that we've had to go back over and do again in some way, and now starting to kind of come good, come right. And that's really, really going to be helped by some of the beautiful astrology that we have this week that I'm excited to bring to you, like being a happy messenger. So without further ado, the other thing, the last thing to remember, actually, just to give us some context about Mercury, is that all three of the Mercury retrogrades that we're going to have this year will all be in these air signs. We've just come out of this very rare, super powered stellium of planets in Aquarius. We had the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, the Great Conjunction at the winter solstice in Aquarius. Lots and lots happening. We've got the North Node and eclipses happening in Gemini. So lots and lots of air stimulation. Uranus being the ruler of Aquarius again, with that having some major aspects going on this year, lots and lots and lots of air influence, which is the mind. Okay, so lots and lots of mental energy. Each three of the retrogrades will be in air signs. So once the Aquarius Mercury retrograde is complete, it will then be Mercury and Libra's turn as we progress through the year. So without further ado then, let's crack on with the week. As always, I recommend, if you can, to give the whole piece a listen through as one complete thing, but don't worry too much. Allow your intuition to guide what parts of it you attach to. And then ideally, when I've time-stamped the recording, if you would then listen to each day as we go through the week, just to give you a reminder and just to pull you back in. That's really the best way that you can use these videos. And as always, it really, really does help me if you give it a like, give it a comment, share it with other friends, you know, any kind of activity facilitates and assists the algorithm. You know, all of these things are talking of the Mercury and all of this air and Uranus energy. You know, the algorithm of this work is really important, the digital world that I'm in. So if you do gain some value from what it is that I do, if you do, like me, believe that the world would be a better place if more people had access to this wisdom, even in some very, very small way, even if it's in a way of just validating your experiences, which actually is a very beautiful thing, then please do encourage it by stimulating some activity. And talking of stimulating activity, Monday the 1st of March then. So let's just check in. We've got the sun over there in Pisces, the very last month, the very last sign of the zodiac. Sun is now in the second decan of Pisces. So although it's not shown on my chart here, each of the signs occupy 30 degrees of the 360-degree circle. And those 30 degrees are then subdivided into sections of 10. So each sign has 3 sections of 10, and each 10 is called a decan. All right. And it kind of has a, you're probably familiar by now if you've been following me for a while or you're a fan of astrology in general. Each sign has 1 or 2 main rulers, but each subdivision, each of these decans has its own ruler as well. So the sun is now in the middle part, that middle decan or second decan of Pisces, where we are this week. And that is, if we're following the ancient wisdom, which existed for the longest period of time prior to us inventing telescopes. So essentially the ancient system relies solely upon what our ancestors could see in the sky with their eyes, so only as far out as Saturn. Under that system, the second decan of Pisces is ruled by the planet Jupiter. And that's wonderful because, as you may know, Jupiter is the co-ruler of Pisces. And this is a very, very Jupiterian week indeed. Lots of Jupiter energy, which is probably why I'm smiling so much. And then if we switch to the modern system, which includes the further out planets that came to us that bit later or more recently, since we discovered telescopes and could see beyond the limitations of the human body. And then that gives us the, actually the moon would be the ruler of the second decan of Pisces. So play with those, you know, if you want to take your astrological learning a little bit deeper, just play with those archetypes of moon being around, you know, Cancerian energy, so the home and family and how you're feeling in your emotional private world, and the Jupiterian energy of really just being the kind of the very much out there in the big wide world energy of expansion. See which one is the better fit for you. Although this might be a tricky week to do that because, as I say, there is so much Jupiterian energy around. But just a little bit of a backdrop as to where the real focus is from the sun at this point in time. Now, beautiful energy today. I'm going to explain it in my usual kind of way that I do here on my video, but I don't know, some of you may not be familiar if you don't follow my Facebook page. I tend to give a more creative interpretation to my explanation of what the planets are doing. So if you have a more creative or feeling nature, if some of this is a little bit perhaps too scientific maybe, or a little bit dry, then do check in with my Facebook page, or do both and see if you can kind of find the best of both worlds. But I've written a piece that was published this morning, which really captures the energy that we're moving into deeper and deeper as we move through Monday. So we've got the moon in Libra. Well, they both begin with L, as close. It's Monday. The moon in Libra. So this means that she is ruled by Venus. Okay, so a Venusian moon that's all about relationships and connections and pleasure and art. And, you know, it is an air sign. So this is kind of how we create an understanding of something through its beauty. Okay, now this is going to work really, really nicely with, we've got, I think they're that way around. I think they're that way around. Mercury and Jupiter are coming together. They're forming a conjunction as we move throughout the week. So this is Mercury's very much about little details, little pieces of information, data essentially. And Jupiter is this broader understanding, a greater philosophy. So when these guys come together, there's very much an emphasis on wanting to learn something new, or, you know, a new piece of information coming to you that really broadens your own perspective on things, your own beliefs on things, and just kind of opens up new doors of understanding. And I love what's happening today. We've got a trine from the moon, a Venusian moon, to Mercury and Jupiter that's really facilitating, you know, bringing a greater understanding and meaning of life and the philosophy that we have about life, through our intellectual appreciation of our connection and our connection to beauty and what we perceive to be beautiful, which is definitely worth something that's worth considering. This really is facilitated by the energies that we have, the fact that the sun is in Pisces, with Pisces being the sign that likes to meditate on things. It likes to remove itself from the busy outer world and go into a kind of a place of peace, perhaps a religious or spiritual building or space, however you create that, and just kind of be at one with source energy, whatever that is to you. And I would really, really encourage you to find some time on Monday, throughout Monday into the evening, late afternoon and into the evening particularly, because that's when this energy is really, really ripening. And it's in that space of opening up to the heavens that we do, you know, we think of all of these religious buildings, spiritual buildings, and they all have this focus on height. You know, whether it be churches or synagogues or whatever, there's always a tower, there's always something that's pulling us upwards. It's a sublimation. You know, the sublime is when we've moved energy upwards, and that's what we do through the chakra system, and we reach the pinnacle, being the crown chakra, this place of where we would have a halo of enlightenment, you know, because it's reaching the heavens, it's reaching this incredible cosmic energy that's going on up there that we know is so vast and so important to our experience and everything that's going on here in life. So try and get into that sacred spiritual place if you can. So what we've got then is we've got a trine going on there. That would be beautiful enough on its own. But then these two guys, the Jupiter-Mercury conjunction that's building, then is building into a trine with the North Node over there in fellow Earth sign, air sign Gemini. Now, this is Mercury's home sign. So there's this beautiful ability, receptivity, as we would call it, between these two places. They speak so well to each other. And of course, the North Node is this point in the sky. It's a very fertile point in the sky where the path of the moon and the path of the sun cross over. So the divine masculine and feminine energies coming together to create this very special, very fated, creative point in the sky that gives us our eclipses. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the week as well. So the three air signs and the planets contained within them throughout Monday and into Monday evening form what we call a grand air trine. yesterday on Sunday, if you follow me on Insta or Facebook, you'll know that we had a grand Earth trine going on, which was really helping us to get grounded and really, get back in touch with the physical realm of our bodies and Gaia, and how we're supported, and how the telluric energy, which is the energy of that vibration of Mother Earth, comes up through the feet to move up through the body. This is wonderful that we now have a grand air trine following on from that, because that helps with that sublimation process. It helps with bringing up the energy that we've drawn through our roots, through, root chakra, and moving it upwards and in opening up, as it moves up through our system, and then finally opening up the crown chakra, which it's just so perfect alongside this Jupiter Mercury energy of this, this expansion. Jupiter brings expansion of the mental sphere. So this is a kind of very intelligent kind of placement. If I saw this in someone's natal chart, then I would think, yeah, really intelligent person. A grand air trine generally lends itself to someone that does a lot of thinking, a lot of reading, a lot of talking. I've got one in my chart. I'm not saying I'm intelligent, but I do talk a lot. So yeah, this lends itself to intelligence and understanding. So tap into that if you can. And if you've got some kind of urge to learn more, or stimulating a desire to learn or to travel more, but more so the learning, I think, with the air stuff, then this is the explanation for why. Tap into it, see what comes through. Could be really beautiful. So that essentially is peaking as we move through the evening. So between 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. here in the UK, that's the window of opportunity, essentially. So a really good thing that you could do is to do some breath work, any kind of breath work, whatever opens up your mind to focus in on, well, actually not to focus in, almost like to not focus. So just to empty the mind of stuff, chatter, and allow some real divine ideas, Jupiter, Mercury, divine ideas, to find a place within your mind. And with it being air, doing some breath work would be a wonderful way to get you into that space. Or anything that brings the energy of air into your space. So if breathwork isn't comfortable, and it's not for a lot of people, it can actually provoke anxiety. Listening to something with wind instruments, that can help. Flute, very, very peaceful music, but it captures beautifully. Any kind of flute really captures, a reed instrument really captures that energy of air. Or just like wind chimes, that kind of thing can really tap us into that moving, stimulating energy of air. So some ideas there for you to use. That Mercury, so the moon's moving on, so her kind of emphasis in it, does dissipate after 11 o'clock in the evening, really. But the I think Mercury's actually that side of Jupiter, forgive me. The Mercury North Node trine actually will continue right throughout the night. So it could be some really important information. All week, I would say, watch your dreams. In fact, always watch your dreams in Pisces season. Pisces rules sleep and altered states of consciousness and, the other realm. So dreams are always more active in Pisces season, but, especially this week. And so, yeah, with Mercury trining the North Node overnight, then, yeah, definitely look out for what's in your dreams and make a note of them, because there might be some really important information that finds you through that channel. So then as we wake up on Tuesday morning, Tuesday the 2nd of March, so we've still got this backdrop of Mercury and Jupiter coming together and Mercury trining the North Node. The waning moon is in the last part of Libra now. So she's still in Libra, but she's deepened her journey through there. And with it being, a cardinal sign, this is going to create a square aspect to Pluto, which is at the end of cardinal sign Capricorn. So a moon Pluto square gives us a little bit of a push towards change, as does, this is a mutable season. Pisces is mutable energy. Mercury wants change. Uranus wants change. There's lots of change energy around. But with the cardinal signs, that's trying to instigate a process of some kind. It's trying to stimulate, and the square itself is stimulating. It's trying to provoke you to do something. With it being the waning moon phase, as she's going, we had that full moon in Virgo, and she's now getting smaller and smaller as she moves round to our new moon in Pisces next week. But she's reducing in size. So essentially we can take that as a cue and say, okay, this provocation to make a change is about letting something go. It's about purging something, being rid of something, cleansing something out. All right, especially with Pluto energy, does tend to have this very deep purging where it pulls things up from the depths and washes them to the surface through the moon, so that they can be released and transmuted, essentially, to be put to use elsewhere. As we move through the day, the moon will then move into Scorpio. And that's obviously Pluto's home sign. So the energy is sort of like, it's a continuation of the same kind of theme in a way of, there needs to be a real inner process of emotional transformation that takes place. And that's a transformation of release, of letting go. This is a really interesting synchronicity. I'm just going to remove that for the moment, because we've got at this point Mars at the very last degree of Taurus. So the 29th degree of the signs, a very powerful degree. Mars has been held back for so long, having the retrograde in Aries and then being sort of stuck in the mud in fixed sign Taurus, where it's literally like when you're trying to walk through mud and your wellies are being pulled off your feet. You can't make fast progress, and Mars does like a bit of speed. So Mars arriving at this very last degree of Taurus is really, it can sense that it's about to be freed up from this mud. It's like, okay, I can sort of see the end of this swamp that I've been wading through. And so it's starting to get a bit excited, but possibly a little bit prematurely because it's still in the mud. So there's almost like a surge, like this surge of energy of that kind of that final push to get to the other side, as it were. And again, that, that speaks to, with the moon being in Scorpio, which is a Mars ruled sign, then again, we've got a lot of that Martian impulse coming through to us. So yeah, some powerful symbology then. And of course, Mars speaks to the individual. So it speaks to you and what your will is. Okay, so where have you been? Where is what you want in the world been really, really held back? And that's been for a really good reason. That's been so that we can contemplate deeply whether what we want is truly in alignment with what's actually best for us as individuals. And the individual part that we each play in the community, all of this Aquarian energy talks about the collective of mankind, is what I want as a personal individual, actually, does that show up in terms of where I'd like humanity as a whole to be going as we approach our future? So we've had this long time to contemplate that stuff. And that's, I hope we've engaged with that. but yeah, Mars at this final degree, it's kind of like, yeah, okay, I get it. I know what it is that I need to be moving towards. And there's this real kind of like, almost like I used to have those toy cars when I was little, and you'd kind of pull them backwards a bit for ages and ages to wind them up, and then they'd shoot off. Well, this is kind of like that process of like, we're going backwards. And we're like, there's probably some really clever term for what it is that I don't know. But one of those, yeah, where you're just kind of winding it up and winding it up. So we could feel a little bit tense. And especially, you know, when the moon's in Scorpio, we can tend to feel a little bit tense anyway. But yeah, it's all kind of like powering us up, ready to move forward. So use this as the last opportunity to really, 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 if you weren't before, get really clear on those ideas of what part you're going to play as we move forward, because when Mars moves into Gemini, it's really important. So I think that's everything I wanted to cover on Tuesday. Yeah, okay, so moving into Wednesday then. Of course, Wednesday is ruled by Mercury, so it's a mercurial day anyway. And the Mercury-Jupiter conjunction is, you know, they're increasingly powerfully coming together. So that energy of, you know, opening the mind, being receptive to new ideas or a broader perspective in some way in terms of how we think about things is really, really present, which is beautiful on Mercury's own day. We've got at the start of the day, because we've got the moon in Scorpio, in water sign Scorpio, what we're going to have is, as we start the day, the moon will be speaking to Venus over there in Pisces at the beginning of Pisces. Again, it's a trine, so it's a really easy flow of energy that we don't really need to assist in any way. We can just get out of our own way and let it happen. Essentially, moon Venus, I mean, this is beautiful energy. It's very creative energy. It's very dreamy energy. And again, this will tap us into our values. Venus is what it's our worth. You know, it's what is my value system? You know, what do I think is worthy? What do I think is beautiful? What do I think is love? All of these things, and we all love and value completely different things depending on where Venus is in your own natal chart, of course. But we've all got the Venus Pisces thing going on right now, which of course is a greater emphasis on compassion, of forgiveness, of understanding, our connectedness, the connectedness of all of life, be that just the human web of life with the natural world, with the cosmos, with the heavens, that beautiful kind of flow or matrix that we're all tapped into. And the moon here in Scorpio can really deeply sensitize us to feeling that, you know, moon being our feelings. So really beautiful energy around on Wednesday. Also, Venus will be sextiling that day. A sextile to Uranus perfects. So again, stimulating change. Now, as before, Venus rules Taurus, so that increases the receptivity of these two planets and this particular connection that they're making. So this is really saying to us, perhaps something needs to change about my value system, or I'm recognizing now as I look back on the year, which is what we do in Pisces season, that last month of the year, look back and take stock and say, perhaps actually my value systems, the things that I value have really changed. A lot of things have been taken away from us, and that's given us the opportunity to really establish, was I doing those things because I really loved them? Was I doing them because they really added something to my life, or was I doing them because it's just what I'd always done? You know, have we changed the way we recognize things as being something of worth, something of value, particularly when it comes to other people? Pisces really is the unsung heroes in life. And I keep coming back to this, our essential key workers. Pisces rules the institutions of life. These are these big concentrations of organization within society that that house, educate, rehabilitate, heal. So it's kind of schools, prisons, hospitals, all of these places where people are kind of separated from the outer world, the outer society, to focus on some aspect, really concentrated focus on some aspect of their development, be that their health or their education, or rehabilitation if there's been a criminal activity, or a place to go and contemplate God. It rules monasteries and religious places. So all of the people that kind of are hidden away from view, how do we value those? Have we changed our understanding of how we approach our elderly members of society? Pisces is where it's where we prepare to die. It's the last sign, it's the ending. So this is where the human body ceases to exist, and it's more about the spirit, what's going to go on and beyond this particular incarnation. So has the coronavirus crisis given us an opportunity to reconsider our relationship to elder members of our community? Are they just, I've seen so many really difficult things for me to process along the lines of, it's not fair because it only affects old people. Lots of people have had that kind of attitude. But the elder members of society have so much to give to society, when society's value structure isn't just about what we can do, what we can make, what we can spend, what we can, this very Capricornian materialistic stuff. It's really interesting, and I'll come later in the week to discuss the Gemini Sagittarius axis, which is these two rulers. So Mercury rules Gemini and Jupiter rules Sag. This is youth and age. This is primary school and higher education. Okay, this educational axis here, and lots of studies have found that young people and old people alike get a huge amount when they're combined together. So these two polar extremes of our community, really, really young kids and really, really old people in care homes, when they're put together in the same room, some real magic happens. And I think that's a very sacred magic that goes back into the dawns of time and back down our ancestral lines, when families and the tribe had a greater mix of generations. So I just wonder if that's something that we've had a change of heart about, because Uranus, Venus really is about a change of heart. Also, our key workers, the people who did diligently just work behind the scenes to make sure our food gets to us, which is Venus, to make sure that the hospitals are still running, that the roads are still clean, that the bins are still emptied. And it's usually the low paid workers, our care assistants, and what's being asked of them. Many people saying they should be forced to take the vaccine because it's such an important job. Well, if it's such an important job, we should be showing that we genuinely feel that's what their worth is. That should be reflected in the rewards that they get through their remuneration. So these are some of the considerations, obviously on a grander scale, but in your own life, it's taking stock of where I've had a change of heart, but also perhaps where there's maybe just a little bit that still needs to be done, particularly as we work through the latter part of Pisces, just to kind of say, yeah, actually, now I think about it, and especially assisted by Mercury and Jupiter at this time, come to think about it, do you know what? Yeah, I think the world would be a better place if I just kind of shifted my consciousness to be more in alignment with a more compassionate type of love. an unconditional love. Venus in Pisces is unconditional love. It says, I don't care who you are. You could be 90, you could be, you know, a leper. This is Jesus energy. You could be a leper. Whoever you are, you're just as valuable and you're just as worthy as love as everybody else. And I think that's been a big lesson that's kind of divided society a little bit. Like, you know, who's worth making sacrifices for and who isn't. And that tells us a lot about our value system, I think. So a little bit of food for thought there. But the so we've got a couple of really, really nice aspects going on Wednesday. And that's going to offset or kind of work alongside. We'll see how it pans out. Essentially, as the moon moves through Scorpio, with it being a fixed sign, it's going to come into square aspect with Saturn. All right. And then it's going to be opposite. Hang on, let me get this right in my head. Uranus in Taurus, okay, because we're going to have, yeah, it's fixed signs. We've got a fixed T-square. So lots and lots going on, as you can see. So we've got this T-square that the moon's tapping us into. So an opposition to Uranus, which is really quite provocative. It's really going to force us to have that dialogue with ourselves and face some shadow aspects of ourselves. So maybe this will be where we recognize that actually, I think I have had this attitude of, you know, sod the old people, I want to go on holiday kind of thing. I'm just making light of it, I suppose, essentially. But, you know, maybe it's casting some light on the shadow aspects of some of our attitude, some of our consciousness to what we love and value. And also, you know, the two squares then that we have to Saturn, that's kind of keeping us tapped into the Saturn-Uranus conflict, which is really this push that we're having to find what's the right balance point for me in terms of being responsible, doing the hard work, doing my duty, being mature, and then this Uranus, but I need freedom, I need stimulation, I need progression, and all of the wonderful things that can come with that. I need change. So all of these energies are really kind of working, I think, together to bring us to a really powerful understanding. It's really going to feed into the Jupiter-Mercury connection. But it could be a bit irksome, you know, it really could, as Moon in Scorpio can be anyway. So see how that shows up for you. It will all depend on where it's falling in your individual chart. And bear in mind, of course, that, you know, everyone's, as I often say, everyone that you meet is going to be under this influence, and they're not going to be potentially quite as aware of that as you, quite as conscious, and that's going to give it a very different flavor in how it shows up. So then as the day progresses, that square over to Saturn moves on as the moon does, and it becomes then a square to the Jupiter-Mercury conjunction. So again, that's a provocation saying, perhaps it's time for me to open my mind in a different way. Perhaps it's saying, you know, yeah, there's something about this that doesn't sit right with my beliefs. Jupiter is my belief system, my overriding philosophy on life, or even my political beliefs. You know, Jupiter's very much about politics. So, you know, it's going to be just an opportunity to bring those things into awareness. Bear in mind, you know, we are waning moon. This is ending, this is wrapping things up, this is letting things go. So if there was ever a time for something to sort of come up into your awareness about a shadow aspect, then, you know, this is the ideal kind of moon phase to use that. That then gets offset a little bit by the trine that moon had to Venus then turns into a trine to the sun. So this is kind of facilitating a harmony between our rational side, the kind of the masculine side of us that wants to make sense of things, and then the inner emotional, intuitive feeling side of ourselves. These two come into a harmonious alignment, and it really helps to kind of process everything else that's been going on. So loads and loads and loads going on. I would kind of approach this day as it being a gentle stimulation, a gentle provocation, just to explore some of the areas that I've talked about, and just see if there's a change that needs to be made, Scorpio, in the direction of the higher self, Pisces. That's how I would kind of encapsulate the whole day. What changes need to be made in order to move in the direction of my higher self, and what my higher self understands life and my place within it to be. So, and that's at that final stage with Mars at the very last degree of Taurus saying, yeah, come on, I need to get ready. I need to make something happen. So overnight then, as we move into Thursday, that's when Mars will ingress Jupiter, Gemini. Gosh, what's happened to me today? Mars in Gemini is a whole different ball game from Mars in Taurus. This is a mutable sign, so it's a sign that likes movement. It's a very, as I mentioned earlier, it's a very youthful sign. It likes new things. Gemini loves something new, loves variety as well. So there's this youthful kind of stimulation of, I want to do more things. I want to now my feet have come out of the quagmire. I can move around in all different directions. Look, I can wave my feet and my knees and my hips. And so there's almost like a joy that comes back in terms of freeing up of the will, our will, and the directions that we can put that to. It's almost like there's so many options in front of us of what we can now do. And we need to obviously approach that with a little bit of care, particularly whilst we're still in lockdown here in the UK. Obviously, we've had this kind of this roadmap out of lockdown delivered to us, but it's and we could get really carried away with the Mars in Gemini thing. It's like, oh God, come on, I need to do things. I want to do things again, especially with Gemini being the third sign. The third house rules our immediate neighborhood, our kind of our neighbors, the local area, the place where we move around in our day-to-day movements. So we will feel more activity, more stimulation within the neighborhood again, which will be a real refreshing kind of dose of life again. Essentially, Mars is, life. It's the fire that makes life happen. So it will be lovely in lots of ways. It's also going to be stimulating the North Node. As soon as we have that ingress into Gemini, as I've mentioned before, we really feel the ingress into a sign if there's some other stuff that's going to happen in that sign later on down the road. And of course, with the North Node in Gemini, that means that we're going to be having the eclipses in the signs of Gemini and Sagittarius. So, which is this perfect synchronicity with the two rulers, Mercury and Jupiter, coming together. So it really, really, really loudly speaks to the Mercury-Jupiter combination of energies of, I want to learn, I want to know more, I want to understand more. So essentially, Mars is going to be stimulating and waking up this part of the chart, almost like as a preparation for these eclipses that we're going to be moving into. So look and see where Gemini and Sagittarius are in your chart. Those houses are the houses, the areas of life, that are really going to be getting these very powerful fated shifts of energy later on. So we've got 4 eclipses coming up in the calendar year. May the 26th is 5 degrees of Sagittarius. Then on June the 10th, we have an eclipse 19 degrees of Gemini. Then November the 18th, it's actually 27 degrees of Taurus, but the node will still be in Gemini, so it still counts. So actually just at 1 degree of Gemini. And then same node at 1 degree, December the 4th, it will be at 12 degrees of Sagittarius. So Mars is waking this up and saying, come on, let's breathe some air into those embers and get life bursting into flame again, ready to make some stuff happen. That first one being at 5 degrees of Sagittarius. So, you know, Mars will really, really be stimulating that in just the next few days. The journey of Mars through Gemini, it's going to be really lovely because, you know, that Mars Gemini thing can be a little bit too excitable. It can want to just do too much too quickly. It can just be real burnout kind of energy, because it's like, I just want to be here, and then I want to be there, and I want to do this, and I want to do that, and quite kind of scattered and quite lively, a real live wire. But as it moves deeper through Gemini, the whole time it's in a sign-based trine to Saturn in fellow air sign Aquarius. So Saturn's going to give it a nice calming energy in this harmonious aspect. It's going to help to dissipate some of, I mean, these are considered to be the malefic planets. So their harmonious connection to each other is going to help them to, I guess, in a way, be a little bit less malefic. But they're going to temper each other. You know, Saturn's just going to make Mars's keenness just chilled out just a little bit. It's like, it's cool, there's time, don't worry, we don't need to rush. And Mars kind of stimulates Saturn a little bit in the other direction and says, you know, come on, oldie, let's actually make some stuff happen. But it'll be stuff that lasts. That's the thing with these two working together like this. It's kind of like the actions that we take are actions that can last a long time, rather than sort of quite flimsy, fleeting, quick things if it was just Mars on its own. So that's going to be really, really nice. The other thing on Thursday then is, as we awaken, the moon's still on that journey through Scorpio, this time trining Neptune. So as we waken on Thursday morning, again, another time when we might have some really profound dreams. But really this is saying, you know, what are my dreams? What are my hopes? What do I really, really deep down want to align with in terms of my meaning structure? You know, Neptune is the planet that makes us ask, what's this all about, right? And I think that the crisis that we've all been through has really, really pushed. And I think with the Neptune, as it was squaring the nodal axis, has really been asking us to really consider, you know, what's it all about? What am I doing here? Is it really just to go to work and buy stuff and go on holiday and then retire and then die? Is it really that's it? The miracle of a human being and all its vast potential, are we really going to limit it to that? Or is there more? There's always more with Neptune. Neptune doesn't have any boundaries. Neptune doesn't have any limits. It's water. It can get through the tiniest little crack and crevice. It can get everywhere. There's no limits. So this really is, you know, if there were no limits, what would you want? What would bring your life meaning? and try and align with that, even if it's just in some small way. But I think that the fact that that's happening at the same time as we have Mars moving into Gemini, stimulating the desire to do something, and building into that trine with Saturn, it's really saying what I do now needs to be in alignment with this. And it also needs to be in alignment with the part I am going to play, me personally, Mars, what I do, who I am, in terms of the kind of society and community that we're trying to create. Saturn in Aquarius here is trying to create a structure of a new community, a new tribe, a new network. So that's not going to happen by itself. That only happens when all of the individual members of that community do the stuff that makes that happen. So it's a combination of those energies on this day, really, really powerful energy to play into and say, actually, I think that we can dissolve some of those smaller ways of thinking that has had us acting as a species a lot smaller than we really could be, and just open ourselves up to limitless possibility a little bit more in terms of how we move forward, because we've not really got anything to lose, essentially, by doing that. We have to keep grounded. Yeah, absolutely, we need to keep grounded, but we also, as the song goes, you have to have a dream. There has to be a religion. There has to be spirit within you somewhere that goes beyond just, my body and what I'm eating and what I'm cleaning and what I'm doing, all the mundane stuff. So I hope I've inspired you. I think Thursday's a really, really, really important day. And that's when Jupiter and Mercury are really coming together again at the peak, coming into the peak of that conjunction. And in fact, they conjunct exactly, let's put them that way to show it. They come together exactly at 3 a.m. So over that night and into Friday the 5th, the morning, 3 a.m. Friday the 5th, that's when we have the Mercury-Jupiter conjunction. So let's just hone in on what that all is for a moment. Jupiter is the ruler of the south node at the moment because that's in Sagittarius. So we need to consider that. I think that's really, really important that we consider it. And they're sextiling at this time. So that's saying do a little bit of work with this. So what this is saying is it's saying lessons. Jupiter is learning. Jupiter Sagittarius energy is learning through lived experience. So Jupiter is like when you've gone out there into the big wide world, as you've got older, as you've reached maturity, and you've gone off out there into life. And life isn't just something that your parents tell you about, or your teachers tell you about, or you read about in a book, or you watch on the telly. You're actually going out there and living it now. Okay, it's big stuff. That lived experience can be so profoundly different from information. Information is ruled by Mercury, all right? And that's ruled by our north node of Gemini, okay, down here. So this is where we're going more towards. So this is the big ideas, the big concepts, the lived experience, the adventure, and how we gain our experiences and our understanding, our philosophy of life based on actual lived experience. Whereas with Gemini, so with the Mercury stuff, this is like, how is that broken down? How does that look in my individual day-to-day life? So I don't know, yeah, I took a gap year and I traveled all around the world and I learned loads of really beautiful things from other cultures. But then how do I take that vast chunk of belief and actually refine it, distill it down into something that I can use in my day-to-day life in a practical way as I move forward, North Node. So Jupiter essentially opens doors. All right, it brings us opportunity, it brings us luck, it brings us growth. So essentially, with Jupiter and Mercury coming together, this is an opening of the doors to the many, many rooms that are in the mind of man. Okay, so the variety of Gemini that I talked about earlier in the week, there's lots of little things with Gemini. So Mercury is the many, many rooms in the mind of man. Or if you think about the neighborhood, you know, the third sign, third house, the neighborhood is all these little front doors on all of the little houses on the street. What different pieces of information and experience could I get if I wandered into this one and this one and this one and this one, you know, and experienced that variety. So Jupiter here is essentially opening doors opening the many doors in the mind of man. And so it's, if you meet this with an energy of saying, I wonder what doors I haven't opened, I wonder where I haven't wandered, I wonder which side roads I haven't explored yet within myself, within my own understanding, within my own education and my own philosophy to life. And it's very much about doing something different, doing something new. Mars in Gemini and Mercury, it's all about, oh, I fancy a change. I fancy doing something different. Let's have some variety. And Jupiter speaks to the foreign, to the distant, to another culture. So it's really saying, okay, let's just try a different approach. It could bring a bit of an overwhelm. Essentially, Jupiter expands whatever planet it's touching. So there's a mental expansion, yes, but that could also just be an increase in the busyness of the mind. So if you're susceptible to that, or you feel yourself going down that road, then, you know, do what you need to do to get grounded and, you know, understand why it's happening. And this is you know, so there's a potential for overwhelm, and there's a potential for just burning yourself out a bit this day, trying to take on a little bit too much, because Jupiter can be a bit over optimistic. Its desire for more and more and more can just make us like, okay, we need to be a little bit more realistic about what we can humanly accomplish. Just because Mars is now out of Taurus, you know, we need to build ourselves up a little bit steadily, essentially. But it could also bring some really fortunate, lucky, expansive communication our way. If we've been waiting for the results of something, if we've been waiting for a judgment on something, a legal decision perhaps, to be made, if we're waiting to hear back about a test that we've done, an examination we've had, or, you know, something along those lines, perhaps a medical procedure, really, really good luck. So watch out, see what wonderful kind of messages find you that day. Also, it's going to broaden our ideas about how we move into the future, where we go into our North Node, and the part that we play in that. So new ideas that might be, you know, it could even just be watching this video. You know, I might be showing up as Jupiter here, Jupiter returns. You know, it could be something that just twigs something in your brain and goes, oh, there's a door I'd never known about in my mind. I might have a look and see what's behind that. I might open it up and explore in there. And it might take you down a whole new path of learning, understanding. So I wouldn't be surprised if lots of people want to learn more about astrology. This is Aquarius after all. So increasing the desire to want to learn about those kinds of topics, or even just a stimulation to want to do a new class or course in something, or to read more, anything like that. The other thing with this day is that we've got Mercury. Let me see now. We've got an opposition going on. Yeah, because the moon's just going to shift into Sagittarius, which, let me see. I just need to make sure. Yeah. So these guys coming together overnight is just as the moon moves into Jupiter ruled Sagittarius. So that's going to oppose Mars in Gemini. So there's going to be this increased emphasis on the Sagittarius Gemini axis again, and this balancing point between, you know, the big ideas and the finer detail of what that looks like in terms of making it happen. Now, I watched a really, really, really interesting documentary this weekend that a friend suggested to me. And it's about this previously undiscovered, very much of it was a Uranus in Taurus type of moment whereby deforestation out in the Amazon has unearthed, essentially, has uncovered, awakened us to the kind of the earthworks, Taurus, of previous civilizations that we didn't really know much about, if anything at all. So absolutely fantastic discovery, which is a Uranus thing, and to some extent Jupiter. And basically what they found is this 8-mile long piece of rock that was absolutely covered in thousands years old rock paintings that were done by, you know, the earliest indigenous peoples in that land, the very first settlers that got there. 8 miles long, and it was essentially called the Sistine Chapel of the Amazon jungle. And it was so profoundly Gemini Sagittarius. It just blew me away because of its scale. It was so huge, Sagittarius, and it was these very, very simple markings. Just handprints and spirals and pictures of the types of animals that would have been around. Now, those very simple little pieces, and there was lots and lots of them, these very simple little pieces of very basic information led to a huge understanding about the history of that entire continent and about humanity itself, because it captured information that would otherwise not have been able to be conveyed to us. So, for example, there were pictures of animals that we know went extinct 15, I think they said 1,500 years ago, perhaps. And so the fact that these pictures of these animals were on this picture meant that they were alive at the time the pictures were drawn. So essentially, it was this wonderful understanding. And the archaeologist that was introducing the piece, the documentary, went on to say that archaeologists are now absolutely mind-blowing in so many ways, going down a different approach of understanding information, Jupiter, Mercury, by actually sitting down with the pockets of the indigenous peoples of the Amazon and actually listening to their stories. I mean, why that never occurred to them before was quite remarkable. But actually, rather than seeing themselves as separate from, it was this connection to the tribe, and how the oral traditions, Mercury, Gemini, the oral traditions of storytelling actually had passed down informations and myths about where these people had come from, that then tied in with the archaeological findings to give this incredibly rich, full, big picture of life. And it struck me that it was the most perfect metaphor for the week that we're going through. So this new approach, is there a new approach to understanding or learning or communicating in order to learn and understand? Yeah, so I think that, broader ideas about the future. It's a great day to commune with the heavens about movement. Mercury rules movement. Mars in Gemini might want some movement. So I would recommend, because it's such stimulating active energy, I would recommend a moving kind of meditation. So that might be dance, it might be meditative walking, or a lot of people get into the hypnotic state with running, but trying not to have any distractions like, you know, the earphones in and that kind of thing. Just something rhythmic, something moving, that can just open up these potentials and allow new ideas to flood in. If movement isn't something that you can do a lot of right now, you know, or ever, then I would go along the lines of just trying to bring some kind of movement or change into the information that you're ingesting. So that might be try a different TV channel, try a different radio station, read a different book, listen to a different podcast. You know, movement can be captured in that way, but do something different that might just kind of open up another doorway that you didn't know was there. And yeah, and it's a stimulation, it's a call to find this balance that's going to be, I think this is going to be time really well spent when we move into the eclipses. And it actually might even be the first call of the eclipse energy, as it's trying to stimulate a change of path for you in these houses. This conjunction really could speak to that energy beginning, or it's sowing its first seeds. So have a really, really, really gorgeous day on Friday. It's very, very exciting stuff. As we move through into Saturday, then Saturday the 6th of March, the moon continues through Sagittarius all day, so that's gorgeous. Love it. Very optimistic, keeping the Jupiterian vibe alive. Lots of optimism, lots of fun, all day and all evening. So this really helps us to continue that contemplation, that just broadening our perspectives of what might be possible as we move forward. And especially as she moves over the, I'll just pause it a second because my battery's about to die. Hold on. Sorry about that. Yeah, so especially as the moon moves over the nodal axis, so as the moon meets up with the south node up there in Sagittarius, it's going to really be keeping those ideas alive and that stimulation alive, and asking us to start to really think about, you know, what's coming and what do we want to come. Really have a look, if you can, at where Gemini and Sagittarius sit in your chart and really deeply contemplate what you find there. If you need some help with that, do get in touch, book in a reading with me. You know, there's usually availability that I can make for you to either, you know, have ideally a transit reading is what you would need, and we can start to work together in terms of getting you ready and prepared, you know, for what's going to be showing up. What are the areas of life that really there's some stimulation moving into? So yes, the moon passes over that, then that's really going to be keeping that energy alive and continuing the contemplation. So that's about noon time when the moon moves over the nodal axis. What's going to be happening then is the moon moves into square. So this is actually that'll be that way around. The last quarter square aspect of the moon, or second or waning square of the moon, with the sun in Pisces. So this is a really important part of the lunar cycle, but also this is the last quarter square of this astrological year. You know, with the sun in Pisces, when sun hits 0 degrees Aries, we have the vernal equinox and we start the new year. That's the real natural cosmos, universe guided new year, not the man-made one. And so this is the very last waning moon phase that we're going to have. So this really is a deep sense of release, not just in the sense of the moon phase, but also the solar phase as well. So this is an important day of getting to that point of, okay, I've had this wonderful opening up. I've had this enriching ideas or communication around about where I'm going and where I want to be going and what I want to align with in my future in terms of my philosophies and my values. Something perhaps now needs to be left behind in the old world. That's going to facilitate that happening, to almost make room for the something new to move into. So this, the last quarter square can really be that, okay, if you really want change, if you really want it, we're coming into this new moon, if you really, really want to be someone new, prove it. Essentially, it might be a little bit, it might be like really hard to give something up, to leave something behind, to let something go that was closely tied with the person that you were before. You know, we're all very, very different people now. No one could have come through, well, there's always exceptions to the rule, but few people could have come through the last 12 months that we've been through and remain completely unchanged by the experience. That's true for every year, but particularly the year we've just been through. So it's really, this is the time that says, okay, what gets left behind with that now as we look to the future and who we're going to be going forward. And then around 10 p.m. on Saturday evening, sort of working off the back of that, there'll be a square to Neptune that says, you know, is this kind of really in alignment with, you know, that meaning structure that I have that we worked on earlier in the week. But the moon's going to cross the galactic center around 10 p.m. as well. So real powerful download of energy potentially there as well. That's just going to facilitate the whole process. And, you know, these are mutable signs. So this is all helping to bring about change. That's what the mutable signs are all about. And now we have Mars in a mutable sign as well. There's just that little bit more mutable energy out of the fixed signs, Aquarius and Taurus, and into the mutable signs that are saying, yeah, let's get ready for something new, something different. So as we awaken on Sunday morning, then Sunday the 7th of March, the moon will have shifted into Capricorn. So back into cardinal energy, so a little bit more active, a little bit more stimulated. And it's going to actually move into a really helpful trine aspect to Uranus in fellow Earth sign Taurus. So again, we're continuing to work with the waning nature of the moon here. And what it's saying is, you know, Capricorn and Taurus tend to be quite stubborn energies. You know, they're energies where there's quite a lot of resistance to change. They like things to last and endure a long time. But this energy here is really going to help to tap us into the Uranian energy of bringing about something different. So this could really help to shaken up. With the moon, this can really be about our habits. You know, those cycles that we just find ourselves going round and round in unconsciously. Essentially, that's that subconscious programming that we have that just kind of rules the way that we show up and the cycles that we go through. So this could really help us to break free Uranus from old, ingrained, long-lasting habits that aren't really helping us. Habits that were perhaps formed when we were aligned with different goals in life. You know, Capricorn's really all about how we achieve material success or status or reputation or where we'd like to get to within our careers, these kinds of ideas. And like I said, you know, with yesterday's horoscope, it's kind of, it's saying, you know, we can't have gone through the year we've just gone through and for that to be the same as it was when we were coming into that year. there's got to have been some pretty fundamental changes that have gone on in terms of what our ambitions are, what are our goals in life. And so this can really help to shake us out of those cyclical, habitual areas that we've just kind of got a bit ingrained and said, no, to hell with that. I'm done with that. I'm going to break out of that and start something new. I'm going to let that go, leave it behind, because we're approaching a new moon, and that new moon is something that I really, really want to embrace as being something more than just the material. All right. Something that gives real richness, a real meaning to my life, real purpose to my existence here on this planet, above and beyond just the what I can buy with money type of stuff. So I've just written down here, what is getting in the way of achieving your goals? Embrace a different way of climbing the mountain, or break with or free yourself from limiting behaviors and patterns on Sunday. And that rounds off a really, really liberating, exciting week. I love this week. I hope it's been useful to you. I hope it's been informative or educational in some way, even if it's just one tiny little piece. That's all it takes, especially with energy like this around. If you would like to book a reading, of course, do get in touch. If you'd like to read my creative work, follow me on Facebook. Otherwise, have a beautiful week, an awakening, enlivening, door opening week, and I will see you next Monday. Lots of love. Bye for now.